Hello everybody, welcome to BrickVault. Today is another LEGO Top 10 MOCs of the Week episode where I show you guys the coolest custom creations I happen to see people building in LEGO throughout this last week. As always, there are tons of creations linked in the description below. I'm almost running out of the 5,000 character limit in the description box of this video. That's how many links there are. So if you've got time after the vid to go clicking around, I highly recommend that you do that. There are links to everything I talk about and a whole heck of a lot more, plus a link to our web store, www.brickvault.toys. This week, the instructions that have gone up are for the ATST, originally designed by my brother. Stands quite strong, was tested thoroughly in the physical form, and if you wanted to watch the video or get the instructions, you can click that link in the description below. Alright, let's jump into the first build of the week. This is from the designer Paul, and the title is Grease Lightning Jukebox Stage. I know I use the word fun a lot when describing a model, but this is pretty much the epitome of fun when it comes to a LEGO build. The stage is bright and vibrant. The front grille and headlights of an old 1950s car is sitting there. It'd actually be fun to see what a large recreation of a full-size body attached to that would look like. But moving back, you've got the checkerboard tile floor, a rotating, an extremely happy and upbeat looking band with a couple of dancers in the middle, and the jukebox in the back. The hot dog and ice cream shakes on the corner are just a nice little extra touch there. And this is one of those very well-rounded models that could look amazing as a display piece on a desk or shelf. Now let's move down to the next build from Tino Poutiainen. This is the Sea-Wing Fleet Barrier Link. So based on a Star Wars design, in fact in the description it says it's made from 2 decommissioned B-Wing bombers and a powerful shield generator. So those would be the tail ends of the B-Wings. That's what makes up the top and bottom. Possibly a modified B-Wing cockpit, though it does look a little different. And I'm assuming the thing on the other end of the wing is the shield generator. You'll notice that it's made of minifigure legs. That's a great use for this piece. And also, if you haven't been paying attention, minifigure legs are like the seed piece to a lot of different builds, part of a build challenge. So if you click those links in the description below, you will see some very strange uses of fig legs. They're also making up that little barrier right in the center too. Throughout the entire model here, there's some very thin red accents that cut through both of the tail pieces, top and bottom, and there's also just a little bit of that red line cutting in the center. It's a wonderfully smooth, extremely clean looking model where all of the angles match up seamlessly. Now we're jumping on to something that's a little bit less traditional in terms of LEGO design, but from a builder that I've been following very closely for a long time. From First Order LEGO, this is the Beast of Black Lake. Now what I mean by non-traditional is it doesn't look like a lot of these pieces are really studded into a base. I mean, particularly the blackness of Black Lake are just a huge amount of black tooth pieces. And I'm not entirely sure how the teeth are studded in. There could be a base plate underneath all of this. You don't really know. So instead, this is a combination of brick pieces that are used to just create a composition, and it's less single builds that you can jump onto particular techniques. Ultimately, it is like the creepiest thing ever. He's stuck in the middle of 3 gigantic rows of teeth. So yeah, anybody that has a fear of the ocean, I'm sure will get creeped out by this. And even if you don't, this is one of the better, creepier builds that I've seen in a while. And this week in particular has a lot of interesting, creepy creations, as you will see. And right, moving directly on to another one from Leonid An. This is Trwoga. The designer says it is partially inspired by this artwork. There are 3 creatures, humanoid-looking creatures with gigantic sharp teeth and these weird staring eyes. One is crawling out of the mouth, literal mouth of a temple. Love the use of those joint pieces used for the eyes there. That's a really fun little touch. And then you have a crucifix in the back, or what looks like, it's basically a crucifix. I don't really know what to make of it. We also have, it looks like the hills have eyes, like literally the hills have eyes. And you guys can interpret what you think this piece might be or mean or symbolize. All I know is that I enjoyed some of the techniques and it unsettled me in a way where I just felt like I needed to talk about it. Alright, let's move on to something infinitely more bright and fun from the designer Blue Builder. This is called the Battle of the Seasons. The build shows a scroll revealing the beginning of what looks like is going to be a battle, and in each corner is a piece of the world and a bit of the army or the inhabitants of each of these seasons. This builder also showed a small video which reveals that in the center where these energy lines from the seasons are colliding, there's actually a bit of lighting work which is fun. And personally, I'm a fan of just the techniques and interesting worlds that were created here. Each of these areas have their own unique creatures. The scroll has a fun way of curling on either side. That's a great technique. Now back to the creepiness. From the builder Eclipse Collar, this doesn't technically have a name. It's just an untitled piece, or at least I couldn't find it. But the use of those weird bone leggy pieces is just genius with the front face. It's just a combination of bony fingers that come down in somewhat the same angle, but they're also a little bit loose. This faceless creature becomes 10 times creepier with that stuff coming out of the hood. And then composition wise, the fact that we have the larger black pieces of the same kind of bony fingers coming up and around in a wonderful arc over the shoulders just illustrates and outlines the epicness of this character quite well. The fingers and the hands are very expressive. The hunch leaning forward looks like it's maybe an old creature, but the stance has a lot of energy, like it's a monster that could possibly run very, very fast if it needed to. This cuts the line between not just creepy, but also very cool. From BobDeQuatre, he has the starting grid. Now, I, for one, am a huge fan of speeders. He's been mocking up and making a bunch of different speeder bikes for quite a while, and I think after he finished a bunch of them, at least in the description, he says, hey, why not make a starting grid, which would be a great way to display the rest of them. So each of these speeders has their own unique sort of take. They're different, slightly different shapes, but they can all fit within the same universe. Sort of like this is a racing league that maybe has a height and weight requirement, but then outside of that, the racers and builders can choose the size, shape, and specs of each of their speeders. It's scaled wonderfully for the micro figures. You can see all the different astronaut figs and pilot pieces that are strewn about the grid. One of the speeders is getting dropped down by a crane in the back. It looks like there might be some fuel stations. You can see the octane fuel tank over there. I love the speeders, and this really was a fun way to put them all together. This might be the brightest and happiest creation that we have for the week from Henjin Quilones. This is Varlyrian Vacation, or a Varlyrian Vacation. Everything about this model is quite bright. The water almost looks tropical and warm. Small sprigs of plants and undergrowth is popping up between the cobblestones in the streets. The vines are bright green, not even a dark green. All the flowers on the windowsills are blooming. Everything about here is just in full swing in terms of people enjoying themselves. The season is nice. Everybody's out on the streets. We have some wonderful characters with interesting interactions. If you look a little bit closer, and personally, I think that's the best use of the old Chima character. It's a bit of a custom fig on the rooftop, but definitely works for me. In terms of architecture style, it looks simpler than it is, but some of the outward facing panels are actually made with tile pieces. It deceives you into making you think that build is simple, but in fact there's a lot of complexity behind some of these basic quote-unquote structures that you see in front of you. It's kind of great. It's almost like going through extra effort with the attempt of making you think that you didn't go through any extra effort, and that is not the case when we get to the next build. From Simon Hundsbichler, we have Hanging Gardens of Semiramis. I think Semiramis? Yeah, maybe that's how you say it. But yes, look close, because there's so many weird hidden pieces in this design that it makes my head spin. I notice something new every time I look at this. You may have been able to notice minifigure legs being used in some of the previous builds that I've shown you. There are several hidden in this design here, as well as minifigure hands making up different little details here and there. I love that the legs are actually used as bits of the waterfall. Boba Fett's jetpack is part of the Hanging Garden if you can find it close enough. Also Joker's hair, Ninjago armor piece. Had no idea that 1x1 rounded plate piece with the bar clip fit into an arch brick, and the technique to make the staircases is just genius. There's so many details. If you just look closely, you will find all kinds of strange, interesting connections, and this truly takes micro building to the next level. This place looks massive. It looks like a giant Tower of Babylon type structure, but in fact it's honestly not a very large build at all. There's just a huge amount of tiny pieces crammed into every little corner. Now for this next next build, it is just so impressive. I love the combination of shapes and folding bits of sheet metal for this spaceship. It is the LL928B Galaxy Explorer by Ben Smith. Like so many high quality and intricately built spaceships, this designer has paid homage to the classic space color scheme. You can see the logos on the sides, but frankly, the nostalgia is like earning 0 points for me. Everything in this ship that I love is just building technique through and through. A model doesn't have to be studless, of course, for me to like it, but stylistically, when you go for a studless look, there are things that you can achieve specifically because you've gone studless that you cannot do when you've got studs. And this is the case here. I love how these bricks that are stacked on their sides meet right in the middle along the seam. A lot of the larger sheet metal pieces in Lego bricks rest on a series of hinges, and he managed to measure it out in a way where there is no significant gap. The way the wings, quote unquote, stick out slightly wider than the main frame of the ship reminds me of how that spaceship looked in Interstellar, though it is a completely unique design. The solid color cut between blue and gray is extremely smooth. Usually when you see color changes happen with a build style like this, you might have slightly larger gaps. Not the case here, and it's just because the designer is like a genius when it comes to measuring these things out. You've also noted that the whole thing is lit up and shot in a really wonderful little studio that shows a basic sort of lunar or moon or planet surface. Once again, the classic space theme is nice, but frankly, everything impressive about this model comes from the shapes that the designer managed to create. 10 out of 10. That was the last of the top 10 models that I'm talking about in this episode. Remember, there are links to, I don't know, 50 more in the description or something like that. Also, if you want to check out our web store, that's still an option, www.brickvault.toys. Thank you so much for hanging out, staying to the end of the video. If you enjoy our content, you can always like or subscribe. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday or whenever you're watching this video. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time at BrickVault.